Live television is not easy. It looks easy when you're sitting at home watching TV, turning channels, watching commercials. Everything's perfect. It's not easy. It requires a lot of work and it's under a lot of pressure, but it's so important. That's what this show is all about, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Mackenzie Rossero, a producer in New Day, Cleveland. Next. The heat is on. Let's get cooking. This is Purpose Under Pressure. It's a podcast about people, business folk, just like you and me. We get up out of bed, we put our feet on the floor, we go to work on purpose to try to accomplish something, to do something that maybe we were made to do. It happens to all of us every day, and then the storms rise and try to knock us off track. And that's what this show is all about. Purpose Under Pressure is a podcast that you can like, you can subscribe, you can follow. You can tell your mom if she's interested. I'm interested if you like it. If you're back to watch it, it means there's something that brought you back. Tell a friend, let them know this show is worth paying attention to, and maybe we can help them get over some pressure points as well. So I do appreciate the follows and the subscribes and the likes in any way that you can let people know. Purpose Under Pressure is brought to you by Sandler by the Ruby Group, serving sales professionals nationwide with sales training and business development exercises from their Akron and Columbus, Ohio locations. They're also in Jacksonville, Florida. They are doing it right. They're doing it well. They're doing it on purpose. It's the one of the reasons I sought them out to be partners in this program, because they believe in this idea that we're trying to do something right. We're trying to do something on purpose. It's not always easy, but it's important to stick to your guns and make it come through. So if you want a sales team that behaves that way and accomplishes success that way, they're the types of people that you want to talk to. That is the rubygroup.sandler.com. Visit that website and talk to the folks at the Ruby Group. You'll be glad that you did. I'm excited about today because let me tell you what this show is all about. Here's why it's hard. Let me whine a little bit. Here's why it's hard being me. I do a weekly podcast, 39 weeks a year, about 30 minutes a piece. That's it. And yet it's hard sometimes to find the right guest. It's hard sometimes to get the guest to show up. It's hard sometimes to meet your deadlines, and with everything else going on, to get the show produced. It's hard to put together a weekly show. Okay, so try doing it every day and try having that show being live on TV and try doing that for an hour or longer every single day. That's a whole different ball of wax. And I'm interested to find out how you do it. Welcome to the show, Mackenzie Rossero. She's a producer at New Day Cleveland, Fox 8 television right here in Cleveland. And she's filling that role every day that I try to do on a weekly basis, and she's killing it. Mackenzie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Brian. Excited to be here.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here because I really am interested in this, because I struggle. I think it's really hard. And yet, every day I turn on the television in the morning, there it is. There's a full show. There's guests. There's everything that's got to do with it. So, Mackenzie, we're going to talk about it. I'm interested first. Why are you a producer? Why do you love your job? Tell me a little bit about your purpose and what you're trying to accomplish on a daily basis there at New Day Cleveland.
Absolutely. So New Day Cleveland is a lifestyle and entertainment morning show. We're live as of about 2 years ago. We're live 2 hours a day, live Tuesday through Friday. And then we are taped, pre-taped shows that we put together on Mondays. So it's all about local. It's all about local businesses, local makers, local restaurants, anything that you can find that is specific to Northeast Ohio and Cleveland and the surrounding areas is what we're all about. And what makes our show really special and what makes me so proud to be part of the show is that we give back a lot to local businesses and help to get them to a wider audience. And that has brought me a lot of joy and a lot of purpose, because it is more than just a 9-to-5 job where you go and you're sitting at a desk or you're talking about news. This is really meaningful work in a bit of an innovative way, right? Mm-hmm. You have broadcast, which is hugely important and does so much, and it gets everyone the news and the things that they need to know. But then you also have this outlet like New Day Cleveland, where you get the feel-good stories, where you get the stories that you can show your support by, going to someone's restaurant or shopping from their store. It's an opportunity to get to know your community in a different way. And there's really no other show like it.
And did you always want to be a producer? A lot of people, when they get into broadcasting, they want to be a newscaster. They want to be a sportscaster. They want to have their mug on TV. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes. Is this what you always wanted to do?
It is. So I went to school for journalism and English literature. I've always loved words. And so that kind of landed me in journalism. And then as I was learning the world of journalism, I was introduced to broadcast. And that kind of opened up a door for me that I hadn't really anticipated. And I was, in very coincidental, happenstance sort of way, ended up at Fox 8 as a end of high schooler, and got the chance to really see kind of behind the scenes. And then that path really started there. I was able to kind of see what goes behind the scenes, the jobs that aren't the first that you think of when you think of broadcast. You think of like the on-screen talent, and you think of reporters and directors and things, but producers aren't necessarily the first role that comes to mind. So getting to learn what goes into that role, and it felt like a fit. It felt like home from the beginning. So I'm really fortunate.
It's a really tough job too, isn't it? Like, what goes into a day? Maybe this is where the pressure starts to build. How do you do it?
Yeah. So I am one of a team. So my team is fabulous. So there are 5 of us who are responsible for getting all of the content on the air. So if you were to look at our show, so we have 2 hours of content, 5 days a week. That comes to about anywhere from 16 to 20 segments a day. A majority of those are live guests. Some of them are pre-taped that we've set up and gone to the location. Some of them most of them are live in the studio. Then there's some we'll do live, like out in the community, but they all require planning. They all require coordination. We create graphics for each one. We have to know all these nitty gritty details about everything. And in order to get the information out to the viewers so they can support that business, to make sure our hosts, Natalie Herbick and David Moss, are prepared. So we are really that like middleman in all of these things. And so it's challenging because you'll have last minute cancellations, and you'll have, issues. There might be traffic and someone will be late, and it's a lot of learning you're pivoting all the time. And it's just being comfortable with that speed of things and that flexibility.
So on a live show, someone is late in traffic and David Moss is sitting there ready to go, and you have to say, she's not going to show. What do you do then? You
come up with another solution. You find the goal here, Brian. The goal is always that if you were watching the show at home, you'd never know.
You never know.
That's the goal. We don't want anybody at home to ever know that there was a bump in the road that day, that a guest didn't show. That's the goal. And when we have a rough day, and when it's all said and done, we go, hey, they couldn't tell at home. And that's how we wipe it away.
There's like a hurricane going on, but you don't want anybody to know there's a storm. You want everybody to know it's clean and clear. But still, I have to ask the question. When there's no guest, and it's a live show, the cameras are on, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Mm-hmm. What happens when it's broken? How do you keep people from knowing there's a problem?
Absolutely. So what we'll do, we try to stay really on top of it, try to stay really on top of our people. And if we are approaching the beginning of an hour and we don't have everybody here yet, that's when the alarm bells go off, right? So we'll call, whatever. And it gets to a point where we kind of prepare for worst case scenario, which is no show for whatever reason that might be.
Okay.
And we use this pre-taped content that we kind of have prepared for these sort of situations. Okay. So we'll have, maybe we went to, Fiona's Cafe in Willoughby, right? And I was there. I was like, I was there, we haven't rerun that in a long time. We'll drop in and it'll be a rerun, or we'll take something for the next day. Maybe we'll say, we'll deal with this problem after the show and we'll borrow something that was meant to air the next day. And then it's just kind of this like piecing together from all of the different parts you can think of. And we work as like a collective brain. Like you could go up to anyone in our team and be like, hey, what's that place on the corner? And they sell the mini donuts. And one of us will be like, oh, that's so-and-so. It's so-and-so. Here's, the owner's this person and they're great. So we are able to kind of, when that happens, when there's that hole, we look at the show, we look at what's missing. Do we have food? Do we have makers? And we kind of try to fill that hole with something that will add to that content, add value. And that would ideally, nobody at home would know anything was amiss.
And most times, I don't know if I've ever seen it where it doesn't look smooth and
Thank
it's
you.
just ready to roll. And yeah, well done.
Thank you very much.
So do you plan ahead? Do you call people and try to find the most interesting guests on your own? Do they come to you? How does that work?
A little bit of both. I would classify myself as an expert internet stalker. If you have ever posted about your bakery on a local community group, I've probably seen it. So, I mean, like we, lurking a lot of Facebook groups, a lot of social media, because that's so big and such a large part of, how our world operates. So a lot of searching for people on social media and websites and staying up to date with other news outlets who are also promoting, similar things or keeping up with new businesses. And we also have people who reach out to us. We get emails all the time. And one of the most valuable contacts, honestly, is past guests who will say, hey, I've got this friend who started this business. You should check them out. Or, I have a really good story that I think you'd like. And 9 times out of 10, it does work out. So it's all about really knowing the community and knowing the people in the community. And they, are a huge part of the community themselves. They are the community. So they tend to know each other.
So when you're doing the job, we talk about pressure quite a bit. We talk about purpose, and we talked a little bit before the show about, quality versus quantity. You want to have the right guest. You want to have something that's good, and yet you need to fill the time. When things are really hard, are you focused more on quantity? Are you focused more on quality? And when does that pressure start to get to you? Tell me a little bit about personally how you kind of go through your day. Do you just let it roll, or does it sometimes get a little bit too much?
I try to let it roll. I definitely try to let it roll. I think that doesn't always work. It really depends on the situation. I think that in the last, so we were previously an hour-long show and have doubled our content in the last 2 years. And that has really caused a change of mindset, because what was a problem when we were a 1-hour show is insignificant now because we've doubled that.
Yeah.
So it's really taught me how to just get comfortable with the uncomfortable and just to get, just to do the best you can and make it work. And I think when it comes to filling a show, obviously the most important thing is that we have a show on the air. We can't cut to black screen. We can only make Natalie and David chat so much to each other. There's a little sneak peek, I guess. If you see a bunch of those chats, it means we might have been, that's a hint that things might have gone amiss that day.
Yeah.
But, so obviously you have to get things on the air. You have to have content. That's the whole beast. But in every possible opportunity, you want to tell a good story. And there are so many good stories in Northeast Ohio, and it is astounding how many good stories. And I think that's a testament really to this area, because they've tried to duplicate New Day Cleveland in other markets. And there aren't the local businesses and makers and there's nothing to sustain it. They've none lasted like our shows lasted.
Interesting.
So I think, that's my goal, is to always be telling the stories that are impactful and that will help other people. And sometimes, sometimes maybe that doesn't happen. Sometimes you get those days where you had multiple people cancel last minute, and you're just trying to keep the show moving and trying to keep something on the air. And there are those days, and those days are tough, and, they get you down a little bit, but then you do better the next day, and you tell those impactful stories, and you help those local businesses and help them with their market and to sell and to get people into their restaurant, and it makes a difference.
I know that people at home don't know anything's going on. They think everything's just fine, and you're not letting them see. And yet behind the scenes is when people know it's good enough, and yet it might not be good enough for you. When your purpose is such that you really want to tell good stories, you want to do good for the business, and you know that it didn't quite go perfectly. A lot happens in life like that way. We want things to be always best. And at least for me, it's hardly ever good enough. Do you ever kind of get down on yourself, even though, Mr. and Mrs. Smith at home are going, hey, well, that was a great show. We really enjoyed that. Is it harder for you, though, as a producer? I
think that part of being a producer is being a perfectionist to some degree. So always, I'm always, striving to do better the next time and to learn from my mistakes and to because it's a point of pride for me to contribute to such a wonderful show. And so yes, I definitely get down on myself. There are definitely days that are tougher, and definitely days when you're like, it didn't go as I wanted it to. But what you have to do is you have to pick yourself up and you have to try again the next day, because it's another 2 hours, it's another beast, and it's like planning a whole new party, but you get to start kind of from scratch when you've had a bad day. So
I want to throw you a curveball, maybe put you on the spot here a little bit. And if you don't have a great answer for it, I understand. But this is Purpose Under Pressure, which means we succeed. It's not always bad. People say, Brian, why do you ask all these hard questions? Well, because it's a lot more interesting to know when things are going wrong than when everything's perfect. Can you give me an example of a time when the pressure got so big and when everything was almost ready to just crumble, and yet, because you're great at what you do, because you did the right things, because you remain calm under pressure, whatever it might be, you pulled that thing out. Can you give me an example of how that might go? Because I'm sure it happens a lot.
One of the first things that come to mind are we do an annual show where we honoring veterans in the fall, and we do a show where we honor veterans, but that's its own challenge, because in the past few years and going forward, we have been doing that show remotely. So what that looks like is say for example, David is in our studio at Fox 8 in Cleveland, and he's got, maybe 5 or 6 businesses lined up to do as normal. Maybe we've picked specifically veteran-owned businesses that give back to veterans. They're all within the theme. But then you have Natalie and, multiple live cameras, multiple live trucks, 10 live guests at a other location, in Parma. And so when you pick up the whole show and you take it outside that studio and you ask for the same sort of smooth action and the tossing and back and forth, that gets challenging, especially when you are in what we call the booth, which is where the director's back there. That's where they run like the teleprompter and things. That's where the producer, such as myself, would cue all of the cameras, would tell them, we're going to you. Oh, I need you to change that shot. And it's a lot of back and forth. And that I always volunteer to do the booth, because I enjoy the high stakes and the speed of it. But it is always like you sit there and it is the fastest 2 hours of your life, because you're like, all right, David, I've got 30 seconds. We're coming out to you, Natalie. And I'm talking to them in their ears. I need you to finish this interview. And then because when the clock hits 57:15, it doesn't matter what anybody's saying. It doesn't matter what we're showing. It's over. And it's my job to get them out and get them on time when they're in 2 totally different cities with their own guests and their own, and I've got, however many cameras out in that location, and I'm queuing all of them. So it's a lot to keep track of, and it's a lot of moving parts. But I think that that's part of the fun too, at least for me, is because those are the days that you ride the high afterwards, and that show's done and you're like, looked great and everybody's thrilled. And it's a very satisfying feeling to see it all come together and play a role in it.
One of the biggest problems we have as managers and leaders is sometimes we're not focusing on leading, and we end up doing it for our sales team. How do we coach our people to help them figure out what self-limiting belief that they have that's holding them back from achieving the levels of success that they know they're capable of? Help them flush out what we call their own head trash, that thing that's holding them back. So work with your team, lead by example, watch your team achieve greater levels of success, and watch your team grow, and more importantly, watch your company and your business grow.
Yeah. Is there ever, I'm thinking there's hosts and there's guests and there's directors and there's cameramen and people and is everybody on the same team? Is there ever, hey, this would have been better if you'd have done that. Is there ever any kind of thing? Because I know broadcasting, there's a lot of, it's in front of people, it's live, right. There's a little bit of ego involved.
Absolutely.
I know that. And so how does that play out?
I think that everybody, we are a team. Everyone is unified under that common goal, which is making good television. I think where it gets tricky is that everyone has different priorities, right? Because everyone has different responsibilities. So whereas my goal is to, tell the stories and get the content on the air, very broadly speaking. You have the photographers who want to get their priorities. They want to get the best shots. They want to be, when so-and-so's ready to talk about the sugar cookie, they have a shot of the sugar cookie. Or if someone is whoever's doing the microphones, and if they have to balance sometimes those roles where they're doing the microphones and operating our fourth camera, so I think that's where things get tricky, is that less so there are egos involved, at least in my experience, and more so that everyone has their own area of expertise that they're trying to master. And those sometimes it's, you're running into people. We're wheeling this table out while someone's running through with their microphone, it's a very high traffic. Yeah. Those commercial breaks are very high traffic times when everyone's trying to do whatever their responsibility is. So I think that that's really where it gets challenging at times, but it's all in pursuit of a common goal.
Yeah. And I think that's what it's all about. It's what this show's about. It's about that goal, that purpose, and yet all the pressure that goes on. But it's key that we just don't get knocked off. We got to keep on going. We got to stay on point. So let's change the topic just a little bit. I'm interested in the future, and I know how expensive content creation is. There's a reason no one else is doing this, or you're one of the few. And I love that you bumped it up for 2 hours. I mean, the owners there could put an infomercial in there. I mean, you could do things that, but bless you guys for doing that and staying local and keeping that going. What are the challenges that you see, though, above keeping it profitable? But what are the challenges that you see in the future that are going to impact the way you produce a live television show every single day in a market like this?
I think first and foremost, it's the businesses. We couldn't do this without the businesses and the makers to sustain it. I think that a challenge that we've run into is keeping the content fresh. We try to, if we have, say, one business, we want to spread out visits they have. So when they come on one time and the next time they come on, we don't want to talk about the same thing. We want it to feel fresh and feel different every time. And I think that is continually the challenge. We'll have brainstorms with my team of producers. We'll have brainstorms, and we'll sit there and be like, okay, are there any national holidays coming up? When's National Pizza Day? When's, National Love Your Dog Day, or whatever it is. And we'll plan these themed weeks and things to try to keep it fresh and try to play on the trends and whatever is going on, because that is the challenge as we go forward and as we our show continues to grow and evolve, is to how to stay current to what people are interested in and what people are interested in watching, and how to give them an angle that they haven't seen before. So I think that is an ongoing challenge. And then just finding the right people, that's a lot of searching. I spend a lot of my day Googling and searching for, the right guest with the right business and the right purpose that's a good fit.
And final question about the show: is it the producers of New Day Cleveland? Is it the host of New Day Cleveland? Is it the owner of Fox 8 or whoever? How it takes purpose to put on a show like this. It's hard work. Who's pushing this? Who's got the vision? Whose purpose is this show? Is it the networks? Is it everybody? How does that work?
It's a good question, Brian. I would say I think that the heart and soul, I think it depends on who you ask, right? I think that if you were to ask a viewer, they would without a doubt say the heart and soul are our hosts. And I think that would be an accurate answer. Natalie and David are wonderful people, and they love this community dearly, and they do a lot for it. I think if you were to ask, I think us as producers, we know the show. There's one, our executive producer comes to mind specifically. She's been on the show since it started. When I mentioned before the brain, she is a large portion of that brain, and we know inside and out. And I look up to her a lot because, she is such an integral part of the show, and she's part of, what keeps us running and keeps us moving. And I think that as I, grow in my time with the show, I am becoming and understanding more of those integral pieces that keep everything moving along and keep our show together. But I think I think it's a group effort. And I think that there are so many pieces, because like you can have a producer, but you can't have a show without a photographer. You can't have a show without someone doing audio. Like there are so many different, and you have to have a viewer. You have to have a viewer. Otherwise there's no point. So I think that it takes a village, as cliche as it is to say.
No, it's okay. And it's a tough question. It's a hard one to answer. I think I want to just give a shout out to whoever, and I don't know enough about the backbone of, how the TV8 works or Fox 8 works. But the commitment to doing something local is so amazing and so huge. And it's one that most big businesses are shirking across the country, especially in smaller communities. Cleveland's no longer a huge city. It's definitely not a small town. But, someone with less purpose could say, okay, enough. This is too much work. And yet they're holding steady, and they're holding true to something that's very important to Cleveland, very important to the viewers, very important to, broadcasting in general is just gone so corporate money. And yet someone somewhere, maybe you mentioned them, but someone somewhere is saying there's more important things. And we're going to stick to our purpose. And so I think that's really important. And I congratulate whoever it is that needs to be congratulated, because it's really important that people like that stick to their guns and keep things local where they can.
So I would absolutely agree. I would say that it definitely takes a lot of courage, because there's a lot of risk involved in taking 2 hours of your channel's airtime and committing it to a local show. And I think that for me, I see the rewards of it so frequently. And it is just absolutely the best feeling in the world when, you'll have, if say we're live somewhere, right? We're watching, we've got a photographer out in whatever store, wherever, and the segment's not even over and their phones won't stop ringing. Because viewers are calling, or you'll have someone will wheel their table out after their segment and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I already got like this many orders. And it's just because this is like their livelihood, and this is their purpose, is to do these things and, to give back in whatever way that is, and to be just a vehicle for that success of theirs, and to just be a part of that journey for them is so rewarding. And it is. And I think that's why it's so important, because to shop local and to do these local things and promote these local businesses, because the community and the viewers, they want to support these people. They just need to know who they are. And so by just shining that light, and helping to put these people in front of a larger audience, it makes such a difference. And I think that's not something you can replicate with a national show, with or any other programming like that. It doesn't work the same way.
I love that you see that. I'm glad that that's the idea behind the show, and that's the kind of passion that you're putting towards it. I have one final question for you, Mackenzie. When at the end of the day, when you're kind of looking at the ceiling, are you most proud of the show that you put together today, or are you already looking forward to doing something great tomorrow?
I think I give the show that happened today its moment. I think when you're wrapping up the show and we're like, oh, good show, that was great, whatever it is that we say, but your mind immediately is ready for the next one. So I think that it's always, you're always thinking about tomorrow. I never know what day it is, because my brain's never focused on today. So I think that though it's always, you got to take those moments and be happy and really absorb a good show or a good day or a good segment or whatever it was. But I think that tomorrow's waiting and there's another good show to be had.
Boy, isn't that an analogy for life right there? Anybody listening out there, whether you're a producer or not, tomorrow's waiting. There's a show to be had. Go get it and turn it on and take it live. So I love that. Mackenzie, if someone wanted to reach out to you, and man, I can't imagine someone not wanting to reach out to you. It's great exposure for a potential business or a person. It's a great opportunity for them to tell their story, but it also helps you a bunch because you're able to find good people. So how would someone get in touch with you if they wanted to talk about anything that we've talked about today, including being maybe a segment on New Day?
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody could send me an email, Mackenzie@MackenzieRossero.com.
I'm so glad you did the show with me today. I met you through another former guest of one of my podcasts before, and you just struck me as someone that just oozed passion and purpose, and you had that big smile, and I was like, I think there's something here, and there was. And I thank you for sharing your story. I really do appreciate everything you do. I love the local aspect. I love that you're keeping it going, and thanks for showing me too that my job is a lot easier than yours. I appreciate that too.
Thank you, Brian. I am flattered to have been on the show, so thank you so much.
No, you're well worth it. Nice story. And I, for anybody that's out there as a young professional that's looking to do something great, I want you to look at Mackenzie and realize that I can do anything. I don't have to go everywhere else to do anything. I can do it right here at home. I can make a difference. I can make an impact. There's a lot of opportunities. And, for viewers that are watching, know that there's good people behind the things that they're doing. And if you're trying to do something great in your life, do it. Just like Mackenzie's doing it. I love that. Turn the show on. I love that. There's a show to be made. So that's Mackenzie Rossero. She's a producer at New Day Cleveland for Fox 8 Television in Cleveland, Ohio. She's my guest on Purpose Under Pressure, and thank you to her. It's brought to you by Sandler, by the Ruby Group. Sellers are under pressure to perform. Sandler helps you to succeed on purpose. You'll find all past episodes of Purpose Under Pressure at brianmediastrategies.com/podcast and wherever you stream your favorite shows. We do this every week, and we will see you next time on Purpose.